It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
And welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Podcast, available on iHeartRadio every morning and also on Spotify and Apple and wherever you get your podcasts from. Well, it's another Saturday which has rolled around pretty fast. Is it going to be a relaxing weekend for you or an incredibly busy one looking at property or maybe transacting on real estate? Whatever the case may be, enjoy your weekend. It is the 10th day for September for 2022. And we are on our road trip in Queensland. Continuing today, we've pulled into Mackay, which seems to have taken us forever to get here. And coming up very shortly, we'll be talking with Danielle Law, who is going to give us a little bit of a rundown on the property market here. Some of the things that you need to know about Mackay. You might be looking at investing, a property investment, perhaps in Mackay, or perhaps a bit of a relocation, a bit of a sea change. So we will be finding out just how enticing for property Mackay is with our Saturday morning focus, which is coming up very shortly.
It's your weekend real estate breakfast, a serial-sized podcast about what's happening in your local backyard every Saturday morning on the Real Estate Podcast.
Well, of course, yesterday, Queen Elizabeth II, a very sad day. The news on her passing, a lot of reflecting over the last 24 hours about her life and her reign, of course. And I wonder just how many people throughout the decades has had the honour and the privilege of meeting Queen Elizabeth II. I have never met her, but if I was to tell you that I was in her company for 24 hours, you would probably say, that sounds like a tall story, but it's 100% true. Now, how did this happen, I hear you ask? Well, in 1995, I happened to be working in New Zealand radio, and we knew of somebody in Air New Zealand. And at that time in 1995, it was the only time in her reign that she ever flew on a commercial airliner. And how this all came about was the New Zealand government decided to save money. And rather than send a plane to the UK to pick her up and to bring her back to New Zealand, they thought, well, let's fly her on an Air New Zealand commercial flight. So what they did was they took out all of the first class and they set up a bed, a writing desk, a couch, etc. So she was nice and comfortable. And that's where I got to fly with her from Auckland to the UK. Now, the flight was actually headed for Frankfurt, Germany, and the Germans had no idea. So when they first arrived, you got a piece of paper saying that tonight, I think the flight left at 8:30, tonight you will be flying with Her Majesty the Queen. And I'll never forget when we touched down in Los Angeles, the amount of police cars escorting us into the gate. And then, of course, on to Heathrow. She was the only person that got off at Heathrow, and then the plane took off and went to Frankfurt. So that was my encounter with Queen Elizabeth II.
We talk with leading property commentators with analysis, predictions, forecasts, and what's trending every morning from 6:30. It's the Main Centre Forecast with PRD, selling smarter every day.
All right, let's go around Australia and check on your weather on this Saturday morning. First, we go to Sydney, expecting possible afternoon showers today. Not a great start for the weekend, a high of 22 degrees. In Melbourne, expecting showers, and 15 is your forecast high. Brisbane is the place to be with sunshine, blue skies, and 27 degrees. And in Perth today, also a mainly fine and sunny day, expecting a high of 22 degrees.
We are just as addicted to property as you are. It's the Real Estate Podcast across Australia, 7 days a week.
Well, Mackay, it's around 970 k's north of Brisbane. A quick geography lesson in case you didn't know where that was. It's the sugar capital of Australia, where almost a third of Australia's sugar is produced. It's close to the Mackay Whitsunday region and possibly the perfect spot to relocate to. Hang on. I'm starting to sound a bit like a tourism ad. Let's bring in this morning Danielle Law. She is from Pinpoint Property. And a very good morning to you, Danielle. Welcome to the Real Estate Breakfast.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
So there you are in the sugar capital of Australia, and spring has arrived. So how's the sentiment for property there right now?
Yeah, no, look, it's an excellent question. And I think Mackay is really quite well placed in general at the moment. As you touched on, we've got quite a wide, diverse space with industry, a very attractive location, and a lot of natural attributes to the area. And I think certainly post-COVID, with people putting more focus into where they may like to put themselves, in that type of lifestyle to enjoy, Mackay has definitely been a strong candidate for those type of buyers as well, moving into regional areas.
And because it is a regional area, it means that the median house prices are a little bit cheaper, not the same as Brisbane. And of course, we might have people listening in Brisbane thinking, yes, the further north I get, the more property I'm going to get, the more value for money. So give us an example there, Danielle. Median house price, maybe a house with a bit of land.
Yeah, look, it's a really good point to make, actually. We've certainly seen over the last 2 years, those that are moving to Mackay are often selling in those southeast Queensland or interstate such as Sydney, Melbourne, and coming to Mackay, buying, a beautiful and affordable property, and often then having a surplus of cash still in hand, to obviously set themselves up as part of their new lifestyle. And we're also finding that decision to move to Mackay is a permanent decision. It's not just a short-term plan that they are making a permanent move, which certainly solidifies, that we should see stable times ahead, for the Mackay area. So at the moment, we're still sort of seeing for the typical home, you can pick up something, still quite lovely, with that median value sort of sitting around just under around 400,000. Certainly the unit market is very appealing to especially first home buyers, but also investors. We seem to see a little bit of interest from investors around that unit market where, you can comfortably be picking up, a unit at the moment, 1 or 2 bedrooms, sort of in that just over 200,000 range. But the rent returns attached to that are also, quite healthy as well, due to the fact that our rental market's sort of sitting at less than 1% in general.
So in terms of the medium house with a block of land, what sort of land would you be getting for around 400,000?
Yeah, no, it's an excellent question. And certainly I think a strong point of difference that Mackay can offer in comparison to the city is that land size. That land size typically is around 700-800 square metres, sometimes upwards of that level as well, which really suits our lifestyle. People are often drawn to the Mackay area for the outdoor lifestyle, and recreation is a big part of what we do. So having space and side access for that all-important shed to park the boat, park the camper trailer, kayaks or paddle boards. So certainly that's a big part of what Mackay has to offer, is that larger land content, and that's a draw card. Certainly for those who are maybe moving from cities in more condensed spaces, the regionals sort of areas do typically offer that larger land size. In terms of the home itself, around that 400,000 mark, you could be looking at quite a neat, tidy, sort of circa 90s brick style home. It may have an ensuite, or at least the potential to bring that ensuite into the property. Yeah, generally around that 3-bedroom sort of configuration for that price range.
And you're talking about people moving into the area and they're going there for life by the sound of it. Then it's not short term. They're selling up in other areas. So where are they coming from?
Yes, yeah, very much so. So, yeah, definitely we've seen quite a bit of movement from the southeast corner. So those who might be selling up and moving north from the Gold Coast, Brisbane, Sunshine Coast type areas. Outside of Queensland, we've certainly seen quite of interest with buyers from Sydney, Melbourne, but also South Australia and Tasmania as well. So a lot of them are understandably moving for a combination of family, lifestyle, but also affordability seems to be a hot, discussion with them as well.
And what about first home buyers, and also about employment? What is on offer there in Mackay?
Yes, yeah, no, look, Mackay is very well placed in that it's got a nice broad industry mix. There's also some good opportunity for earnings too, if you've got skilled trade or, labour. That's in very hot demand. They are working around the clock to keep up with client demand, but also struggling with the opportunity to have that skilled labour there to support and, work with those clients that are demanding their services. So certainly for people that may be considering a move from the cities, Mackay is quite blessed to have a very low unemployment rate, a nice wide range of job opportunities on offer. And then combined with the fact that, it's sitting, more affordably in terms of the real estate, entry price.
And what is the population of Mackay?
Yeah, look, broadly, we're sort of sitting around, the greater region is around that sort of 120. And when I say greater region, that's including, out to the Isaac, Pioneer Valley, and north towards the Whitsundays. So, the good thing with the Mackay area is there is a lot of opportunity to choose the lifestyle that you wish to live, whether that's beach, whether that's bush. Acreage is another popular segment in our real estate market. But then just as equally, we've got a lot of people looking for that inner city convenience, walkability, and also just affordability. Again, like you touched on earlier, for first home buyers, for them, certainly they've been blessed to be looking at some support there with these government guarantees, enabling them to maybe make their decision into buying sooner than later. And certainly they will be pursuing, those properties sort of under 400,000 or just above.
And you've gone through this boom along with everybody else in terms of what's happened during the pandemic. What are a couple of the highlights, I guess, for you over the last couple of years around selling property? What some of those observations that you've noticed there in Mackay?
Yes, look, I think Mackay was really quite blessed coming into this COVID pandemic, I guess, in that we were coming just out of the early days of our own decline in our market that we had experienced from a previous mining boom. So we came into COVID quite affordable, actually, and with good balance of supply. So, yes, certainly it's been onwards and upwards since COVID has had its influence and benefited those regional areas like Mackay. So I think, the way forward for Mackay is that at the moment, we have an issue where we have a very severe tight squeeze on our rental market. Unfortunately, there has been an underinvestment in housing for the last sort of 10 years for the better part of it. The issue we have then is where do people live? We have a lot of people who don't have a house. While we're in that sort of climate, that's certainly going to, I think, if not maintain, the level of interest and demand on our market, but also ensure that it remains more sustainable, moving forward as well.
Well, lovely to chat, Danielle. Just before I let you go, if there are perhaps families thinking, gee, Mackay sounds like a place we should go and check out. If somebody was seriously looking at Mackay and they wanted to rent, and let's say a family of 4, what sort of a rental cost would there be for a 3-bedroom home in Mackay if somebody was looking for renting first before buying?
Yes, I'm really glad you brought this up, actually, because that is certainly one part of our market which is quite strained, to be honest with you. And certainly if anyone's maybe even considering an investment into Mackay, it would be welcome with open arms. With a vacancy rate of less than 1%, it's very competitive to secure rental properties at the moment. So certainly for, the typical home, the average your sort of median price you're looking at is around, $425 to $430 a week, with only an average days on market of around 18 days. So generally we have tight supply and those homes are being taken up by the market within 2 to 3 weeks of being listed for rent.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Danielle, telling us a little bit about your little spot there in Queensland. Mackay certainly gets the sunshine. It's got a great median house price for first home buyers in particular and those that are downsizing. No doubt we'll catch up again in the future. Good luck.
Yes, my pleasure. Yeah, lovely to speak with you.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.